I'm Jessica Speer, and it's an honor to be here with you today. Thank you to the Boulder Bookstore and their amazing staff for hosting me to talk about my book that is releasing this summer. So in July, BFF or NRF, Not Really Friends. It's a girl's guide to happy friendships comes out, and this is geared towards elementary age girls, and the timing is perfect just as they start to re-enter their in-person social world. So let's get started on answering these 8 questions. So question 1, what was the inspiration for this book? And it started about 10 years ago. I have a background in social sciences and I've always been fascinated with human relationships. And I'm also the mom of 2 girls. And when these girls hit elementary school, I started to notice that social struggles started to intensify. And that's true for a lot of kids, especially girls, that in elementary school, social issues do get a little more intense. So that got me really curious. I didn't start out writing a book, but I did start out really exploring that at a deeper level. Question 2 is what kind of research did I do for this book? And I, of course, started with books. As I was helping my own daughters navigate their social world, I came across this wonderful author. Her name is Trudy Ludwig. She wrote My Secret Bully, which was followed by her book, Confessions of a Former Bully. And she's written many more great books on social emotional topics. I also started diving into adult books on the subject. So Rosalind Wiseman is the author of Queen Bees and Wannabes. She runs the great organization Cultures of Dignity now. Rachel Simon has written a lot on the subject. Her newest book is Enough as She Is. And I also love Dr. Lisa D'Amour, and she wrote Untangled. So there's great research out there, there's great books on the topic, and this really got my wheels turning. So much so that I ended up starting a friendship program for girls, and through that friendship program grew the framework for this book. Question 3 is what do I think was the hardest part for girls and their friendships during the pandemic and isolation? And for sure, I think one of the hardest parts was the fact that they were so isolated. During this stage of girls' lives, and boys too, once we start to hit early adolescence, we start to see our friendships as our primary mode of support as opposed to our families. That's where we as parents start to feel this, our kids are pulling away a little bit, and developmentally they are. They're starting to place more value and priority in their friendships. So a totally natural phase was completely disrupted by the pandemic, and now a lot of girls don't know where their friendships stand. They don't know what this is going to look like when we get back to a more normal social world. So it's been a tough period, and my hope is that my book will help offer some support and guidance as girls navigate and re-enter their social worlds. What is my advice for girls experiencing bullying, especially if that bullying is happening within her friendships? So my advice is, what resources do you need to get that behavior to stop? Is it maybe getting help from a teacher or counselor or trusted adult? Is it maybe a confidential reporting line? What do you need to get that behavior to stop? Because it's not okay. Bullying is never okay. And let's take a moment just to make sure we define bullying. So bullying has 3 things in common. 1, it is harmful. It's harassing and harmful and intentional. 2, it has the likelihood or is being repeated. So it's being repeated. 3, there is a power imbalance. So the person or group bullying has more social, physical power than the person being bullied. So those 3 things, it's intentional, it's extremely harmful and aggressive, it's repeated, there's this power imbalance too, really equate to a bullying situation, and that needs to stop. What happens a lot more often is conflict or just mean or rude behavior. So if that's more of what's happening, there's a little more choice there. So thinking through your options, if it's a conflict, what's my part in this conflict? Do I need to stand up for myself here? Do I just need to not get involved? Is this some drama that I want no part of? So with conflict, there's a lot more options. In my book, I talk about both these scenarios and the way to manage each. But for sure, if it's a bullying situation, the focus needs to be making sure that behavior stops. Question 5 is, what is one thing girls can do to have healthy, happy friendships? And that one thing is we can be the type of friend we want to have. All we can really control is ourselves, but there's a lot of choice there. We can choose to use kind words. We can choose not to share that gossip. We can choose not to get back at somebody. We have a lot of choice in our behaviors and our actions. So during this phase of life, preteen and teen years, everybody's learning at their own pace. Everybody's growing. Everybody's changing. Conflict is common. Mistakes are even more common. So just by being the type of friend that we want to be, we have the best chance of having healthy, happy friendships. Question 6 is, what have I been reading during the pandemic? And as a writer of nonfiction, I tend to read a lot of nonfiction. So one book I just finished by Judith Warner, and then they stopped talking to me. It's about middle school. Lots of great research there. I've got another book coming out next summer about middle school. So I've been diving into the dynamics of middle school. Also reading this great book by Diana Graeber, Raising Humans in a Digital World, which we are fully in now that we've been in a pandemic. This great book is a middle grade new book called Girl Warriors, how 25 young activists are saving the earth. And I also just read this great book by another Colorado kids book writer, by Megan Freeman. It's called Alone. So amazing books out there, and just grateful to have some time to read them this past year. Question 7 is, what is one thing I'd like everyone to know about this book? And that is that it's an interactive book. So it's filled with quizzes and activities and stories and all sorts of fun ways to explore our friendships. Last question is, can I read a passage from the book? So I'm going to read a short story from the chapter that goes into conflict and bullying, since we talked about that already. All right, so this is called Jenna's Story, Dumped by Her Friends. Jenna and her friends had been pals for years, but in 6th grade, things changed. Jenna noticed that her friends would roll their eyes and snicker when she sat down with them. They didn't seem to want her around anymore and even avoided her sometimes. Jenna was confused and hurt. She had no idea what she had done or what she should do. She kept hoping things would get better, but they didn't. They got worse. Her friends started sharing secret jokes that Jenna knew were about her, and they started to leave mean notes around school. Jenna told her mom about her friend's behavior a few times, but her mom didn't take it seriously. She thought Jenna was exaggerating. But when Jenna stopped wanting to go to school, her mom finally listened. She made an appointment for Jenna to talk to the school counselor. With the help of the counselor, Jenna explored her options and decided to stand up for herself. The next time they laughed at one of their secret Jenna jokes, Jenna stood tall and a calm voice said, "Wow, that's really unkind." Then she walked away. Starting over with friends was hard, but Jenna realized that she deserved to be treated with dignity. It took some time, but she did find a new friend, and this friendship felt real because it was filled with kindness and acceptance. So thank you so much for having me, and to the Boulder Bookstore for sharing information about my book. It's called BFF or NRF, Not Really Friends, A Girl's Guide to Happy Friendships.